We have SJ16, here we go. Referred to the practice of enslavement of black families. But apparently, we have slaves in Algeria that none of us knew about. And it talks about a young girl enslaved at the age of 6 by a Sahrawi family in the refugee camps that fled into Spain, supposedly. That people in Tindouf, black people in Tindouf, supposedly face indifference. I like to see, again, once more, the pointing out of these unverified, exaggerated lies and claims. This is, again, geopolitics really surfacing its ugly head in a mechanism that's supposed to be about human rights. And this is all mishmashed with our concerns, though our concerns for freedom of expressions are very diluted, as you can clearly see. And talks about how there are slaves, okay, and talks about 7,000, sorry, and 130 slaves and people dying in the desert of thirst. Okay, yes, it sounds like a melodrama movie. That's not really happening. But again, I need you to pay attention to all of these words, and later on we will see why and how this surfaced. Okay, paragraph 31 recommendation again for SJ16. So we take a look at who these organizations are. Investigation to serious violation. And again, let's look at these terminology of Sahrawi people one more time. Murdered, missing persons, okay, and about supposedly sending them to their families in the Sahara, in Western Sahara, okay. SJ5 also notes inadequate living in disadvantaged area of the Sahrawi refugee camp. So let's take a look again on Tindouf. Apparently, there's a lot of concern. If there's so much concern, I wonder why they don't send them aid or address their issue of self-determination, including camps and development ideas, okay, and decent standards for against misappropriating and looting. So again, humanitarian aid, no problem. Why not? Paragraph 33, SJ18, talks about Qabail region and talks about gross neglect. Now, I want you to pay attention to all of these adjectives, gross neglect, and it talks about this appropriate number of cases, supposedly, that it's focused on the Qabail region. And recommends fair, responsible, of course, and health and treating Qabail population fairly. SJ19 also talks about standards of nutrition and care steadily throughout the years, disputed aid, and large children deaf and hearing. This is, by the way, a interesting mistake because SJ19 is actually talking about Tindouf, but clearly, as you see it here, it is not mentioned Tindouf. It talks about everything in general. Okay, 35. B and C, again, one more time, it has numbers from the past. These numbers are very, very old, and you will see that they are available online. Point is things are available are not necessary to be in this document. The point of this document is to get the ground. You can see it's overly mentioned, so you might wonder, well, oh, these people must do a lot of work on Algeria. No, they have actually one report from 2017 listed on there. They do not. For some reason, this got more coverage than Algeria. It talks about pregnant teenagers, okay, because that's very, and dropping out of school. And again, one more time, we are more than halfway through, and you can clearly see that Iraq is still not prioritized. Okay, one more time, this B and C, which is take necessary measures for disability. Persons of disability. Absolutely, I do think this is a very valid point. We definitely need to take heed to that. SJ9, of course, access to children and disabilities. And I believe this submission is an Algerian submission, and it's actually a really good submission. If you look at it, it's extremely detailed, really, really, really professionally done. And it's just amazing. When you do a comparison, when you actually look at these submissions, when you take a look at them, is why BCN was mentioned so many times, and an Algerian submission that was beyond great. It was really, really good, actually, and it involved many organizations. Was hardly mentioned. So you can start to see. in any case, cultural rights, and here we talk about the Congrès Mondial Amazigh, and their submission was also very interesting. I talked quite a bit about self-determination. We will talk a little bit later on, if not in this video, in the next, what self-determination means. Okay. In recognition, basically, that the Tamazight language is recognized as an official language in the constitution, but there are no work to push that forward. Okay, this is definitely a concern, and basically that they're largely marginalized, that the Qbail Amazigh culture is largely and they would like that the Amazigh language would go on to regular curriculum and to be used in judicial systems. Now again, these are warranted demands, but is Tamazight at the point where it could be used to a legal judicial system? Again, I don't know that, I can't answer that question, but once you go into a court system, there has to be, the language has to be to a certain par in development and legalities. So there has to be significant research into doing it. But of course, definitely it needs to take place at some point in time. Here we go. Now we're going to talk about Jubileen. Jubileen is the submission. They actually, for paragraph 41, 42, AI is Amnesty International, which again all talk about women's rights. Here talks about domestic violence of women, which we know we have huge issues, and several articles about basically violence against women by expanding criminalization of domestic violence. For example, this to include family and non-family. So that basically there is no pressure towards women to pardon their attacker. This is really honestly a genuine, serious concern, that if us as people, we want to have democracy and a fair system. You cannot have a fair system that oppresses 50% of the population. This is a flaw really in our mentality that we have to alter, because when we think about system or culture, it has to be universal. So if people can commit such crimes, and then we place pressure on the victim so that the family isn't embarrassed, or that the actual offender has a second chance because it's not fair, then how can we later on complain about other things? So we cannot do this to people and then pretend that we want democracy, or pretend that we want human rights. And one thing is made very clear when you speak to anybody in the UN, it's human rights are universal. You cannot impose just what we want in human rights. It has to be universal. But again, there is a definite, quite a bit of emphasis on all of these codes and the family code, particularly the concern of pardoning rapists if they marry the victim. And that's beyond the barbaric. I will not justify that law. But again, still, at this point, Algerians' #1 priority, not really taking heed. SJ16 talks about recruitment, and here we go again, one of those very interesting refugee camp allegation. And here it says refugee camps only. It does not say Tindouf. If you read this SJ16, it's particularly towards Tindouf. Armed militia, violation of human rights and civil nature of such camps, pretending that supposedly they're taking them at the age of 5, okay, and using them, training them how to use firearm and explosives, okay. So you can clearly see they're actually talking about the Security Council. Like, this has really been taking out a notch. Again, understandable so when going back and forth and propaganda on media. But once you hit legal documentation, this is a paper trail. And this is not something to be taken lightly. Okay. Also, one more time, 45, we talk about the partnerships and violence against children, concerns over corporal punishment, meaning basically hitting kids, that's raised issues in Algeria, okay, intensified. Okay, so in schools and things of that nature, really, it's a fair concern. Now we talk about 46. CDH Africa expressed concern Algerian government refuses to register migrant children out of marriage born in Algeria. So I actually would like to really invite you to read the recommendations. Those recommendations, those submissions are beyond, in my opinion, obviously no sources, just kind of say really outrageous things. And really, what filtering is the High Commissioner's office doing to get this information on UN legal documentation? And clearly none. But what's more than that is how it was placed on this report. It's more than the submissions. You can almost understand that these submissions, and you will see who wrote these submissions, where the country is, and you can tell exactly why. But it's almost like you don't even blame the organization, but why did OHCHR place it this way? Because remember, they get to choose who covers what paragraph. And there were Algerian submissions, and they were international submissions with lots of Algerian voices. So the particular choice is very interesting. And here, actually, this CDH, I recommend you read this. It does not say this. It actually does not say which limits children's basic rights to primary care and education. It actually, on the submission, says that some can. Some can are very vague terms. In fact, in legal language, we generally tend to avoid the word some, because the word some can indicate any amount. If I have 2 or 3, it could be some, but that's not enough to say that it is a issue of the camp. And it says some which, again, but right here, the way it was introduced on the submission is that it does directly, as if this was the majority. So again, it's ambiguity, built on ambiguity, and then to finally put it on the submission as if it is a solid thing. One more time, CDH Africa therefore recognize born out of marriages. And again, recognize that Algeria is a 99% Sunni Muslim state. One more time to go over as full paragraph 48. SJ9 observed not only monitor applications of law and accessibility, but talks one more time into no enforced action be taken against persons who infringe those laws. Again, continues to talk about public branches and national commission. The government has no national platform to make public spaces accessible or priorities. Basically, this is to make disability, to give really people with disability spaces. Or, for example, here in New York, every building has to really have especially if they have, if they're a public building, they have to have accessibility to people who are disabled. These are not unreasonable. These are actually really, really good recommendations. This is the stuff that should be going on. And again, SJ9 is an Algerian submissions, very well done, but again, only hardly mentioned. And one more time, draft promotion and protections of people of disability. This is definitely an excellent recommendation. We go on to paragraph 50, and I remind you there are 64 paragraphs. Talks about Cairo Institute for Human Rights. And Cairo Institute for Human Rights, although there wasn't really a submission by Cairo alone, but somehow just mentions Cairo here alone, and it says prevents religious minorities from, again, freedom of religion. One more time, to include association and assembly. Association assembly is definitely a concern of Algerians, but now again, one more time, highly prioritizing the less than 1% over the 99. One more time. SJ8. And I believe this is an international one, 99% okay. Talks about the Constitution declares Islam the national religion. And apparently they have concerns that Algeria declares Islam as the official religion by Article 2, and they have concerns that in order to become president, a candidate must be Muslim. So those are the concerns for SJ8. Again, I remind everyone, Algeria is 99% Muslim country. They do have articles to protect minorities, and religious minorities face no violence, though that is not an excuse for discrimination or to deny people's experience. We definitely have to address these questions. The issue is, one more time, we're on paragraph 52, and hardly anything about Hirak was mentioned. One more time, SJ8, which talks about suspending this ordinance and conditions against non-Muslims religions. One more time, freedom of religion. Particularly the close downs and reopening and grant permission for the Protestant Church of Algeria to reopen. One more time, this is a genuine concern. There definitely should be able to practice any religion. The issue, again, one more time, we're on paragraph 52, and hardly the 99% concerns were not mentioned. Okay, MRG, which is Minorities' Right Group, stated, interestingly enough, from statistics of 2009, and I remind everyone, this is a 5-year mechanism. So there are estimates that 10% of the population basically is indigenous to South Algeria. And again, he keeps saying indigenous. It's everyone in Algeria most people are indigenous. It's not like there are some people that are more indigenous to others. And you will see this over and over again. You will see this with Minority Rights Group actually talking about this when it comes to the Qabail region and Amazigh region. And it's just, there's every region in Algeria that's Amazigh. So this concept of indigenous is almost trying to make it seem as if there are some Algerians that are more Algerians than others, is really creating false rhetoric and depicting a false picture of what is going on. I really think that they need to get a better understanding of the ground and the terms before stating. Again, racial discrimination largely considered institutionalized, okay? And now they are saying that it is institutionalized by white, Arab, Muslim identity only. Recognize where they are taking this argument. And one more time, here we go.